and welcome to Coffee Break Blogging, where you'll learn to grow and monetize your blog in short, tactical installments you can use right away. Now here's the next episode in our series. Welcome back to another installment of Coffee Break Blogging, where this isn't just another podcast, it's a full course on building an online business based around blogging from scratch. My name is David Risley, and if you want to catch up with us from the beginning, head on over to coffeebreakblogging.com to view the full archives. Okay, so today we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus from what we've been talking about. We've been talking here about monetization, so to speak, about making sales, about generating revenue. And we're going to continue on that track. But here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to take a little break today. We're going to talk a little bit about how to make progress or how to grow your online business when you think that you've got no time. And I'm injecting this in here for a couple of reasons. One is because I've been seeing this feedback coming from many different people, including some of my lab members. The other thing is that we're heading into the Christmas break here, and so I'm going to be taking a little hiatus myself. The next episode is going to be kind of like a little pit stop episode, so to speak. That'll be more clear when we get there, and then we're going to take a little break and come back in going full steam ahead in 2016 with Coffee Break Blogging. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So today I want to talk about how to grow your online business when you feel like you're short on time. And the reasons why you could be short on time are actually pretty obvious. I mean, most of us are experiencing it every day, but perhaps you're trying to grow an online business to create that side income or potentially replace your main income, but you have to do it while you have a job. You have a full-time job or a part-time job, and it, obviously takes up a good chunk of your schedule. There's really no getting around that part of it. Perhaps you are like me and you have children, kids, they're a massive time suck, aren't they not? So especially if your kids are staying home or something like that, it can be a real big source of time taken up that takes time away from your online business. Perhaps you're taking care of a relative. There could be a number of things that you have going on in your life that can take your time away from your other intentions, one of which I hope is to work on your online business. And the thing is, when this is all going on, it's really easy to put things off. And this is some of the feedback that I've been seeing out there is people saying, I'm going to launch my business in April of 2016, and these kinds of things, I have a lot of lab members that are coming into the program all the time, but I do, of course, like any membership program, I have people cancel as well. And I always ask people why they cancel. And one of the most common reasons I get is that they're short on time. They're lacking time. And they always tell me they're going to come back into the program later when the time is better for them. And guess what? I never see them again. And so, of course, I look at this as a provider of training, and I look at it as a symptom, not so much a cause. So there's things that I'm going to be doing inside the lab to help alleviate this. But at the same time, I have to look at what they're saying. They believe that life is complicated and that therefore they have no time to work on this other intention of theirs. Okay? So what I want to do is give you what I would view as a little bit of a law of productivity. I don't even know what you would call this, but it's just something that I want to share with you today. When you have an intention to do something, then taking your attention off of that in order to deal with other things is essentially the same thing as deciding that your original intention wasn't valid. It's basically kind of going the opposite direction. Now, let me put this into perspective and try to do this via audio only. I mean, I could easily draw this, but let's say that you have intention A. You have like this goal, and we'll just call this A. And that's something that's important to you that you want to get done. But then your life throws at you other things. All of a sudden, you've got B and C that come up. And maybe B is your full-time job, and C is your kids, or D is something else, some other little fire that you feel you need to put out. The instinct is to take your attention off of A and go and deal with B, C, and D, right? That's what most of us do. And then we'll say, well, let me go get these things handled, and then I'll come back to A. But actually, when you do that, by removing your attention off of the original goal, you're essentially changing your mind. You're kind of running counter to your original intention. And for that reason, you're usually assassinating it. You're usually killing it off when you do that, okay? It's allowing external factors that you think that you're not in control of to dictate how your time is spent. And that's really what it is. Now, here's the thing. When you're designing your life, you get to decide where your energy is directed, okay? You don't have to let life dictate these things for you. And I know it often seems this way. Trust me, I know exactly how it feels. But at the same time, we have to realize that if we have that original intention, we need to not take our attention off of it, okay? It is actually a smaller form of a person who is going to allow these external factors to take their attention off of a goal that they've got, okay? So instead of removing your attention from A and going off and putting out fires in other places, it would be a better route to actually expand your ability to pay attention to many things at the same time, to expand your sphere of influence. We all have this circle of influence around us, and some of us have different size circles than others. Some of us, we tend to only control our own personal space, maybe just our rooms and a few people around us. And things outside of that, we tend to close our eyes and think that, well, that's got nothing to do with me. Other people have much larger spheres of influence where they just instinctually are able to influence a lot bigger space, until you get to the point where there's people who are running companies and things like this who have much larger spheres of influence. So you can almost think of the circle around you, and that circle's got a particular radius away out from you, and that's how much you can influence at any given time. Well, instead of shrinking or keeping things the same and just moving this circle of influence around, so to speak, why don't you exercise the actual expansion of that circle of influence? Actually expand how much you can do at the same time, okay? Now, does this sound harder than it should be? Yeah, maybe. I mean, you might think, well, yeah, sure, Dave, you can say, yeah, I'm just going to go out and start expanding my circle of influence and do more things. But I can tell you, it actually is a skill that you can practice, okay? This is a skill. You can get better at it if you consciously pay attention to it. It's not one of those things where you're just, you're endowed with certain things at the moment of birth and you're stuck with it. That's not it at all. You can totally practice this just like you could practice playing a musical instrument, okay? The skill that you're going to be practicing here is to be able to put your attention on more things simultaneously, okay? Now, if you've ever sat back and paid attention to, have you ever been in the experience of paying attention to kids, and you've got your two kids, okay, or whatever, and you can deal with those kids. Now, all of a sudden, you're in a situation where you have to watch other people's children as well, and all of a sudden, you now have to pay attention to a lot more kids. Well, you can do that, right? Or you just kind of find a way. You find a way to do that. You can pay attention to more things simultaneously than you probably think. You just have to practice it, okay? You just have to practice it. So going back to the original thing, you decided that you wanted to grow an online business. Instead of taking your attention off of that thing in order to go put out fires in other places, why don't you find a way to span your attention among other things to include this original intention? So that means that these things come up, this job, you've got your kids, but you do those things simultaneously with growing your business. Now, it could be that you have to take a little bit of time away from the original intention, but the idea here is that you don't let it go to zero. You don't let it go to zero. You find a way to span your attention among multiple parallel paths at the same time. I hope I didn't lose you there. I'm trying to put it in as clear terminology as I can, okay? So let's take this back to the realm of our online business. If you intend to actually do it, if you intend to grow this business, then you've got to put attention on it, okay? It's either you intend to grow it or you don't. I mean, if you're not really being serious with yourself and you say, well, I kind of want to grow an online business, I'd like to make this side income, but you're really not that serious about it, and you prove that by the fact that you're not doing anything, well, then stop kidding yourself and just go away. I mean, if you're not going to do it, then don't do it. Stop wasting your own thought, just dreaming about it, okay? Now, if you intend to do it for real, then you need to find a way to keep that intention moving forward despite other things that you need to do. You just have to do it, okay? Otherwise, you're never going to get anywhere, okay? Now, let's give you some more concrete tips on how we can actually pull this off. How do you keep forward movement on this intention of growing this business, even though you've got fires to put out in your regular life? Well, the first tip I'd give you is to create a clear plan of action, even if only for the next week or the next month. Most people who are working on their online business, it's like they're constantly trying to figure it out as they go, even into the short term, where you say, okay, I'm going to dedicate the hours between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. to working on my business. And then 9 p.m. comes along and you sit down and you don't even know what to do with yourself. And that's because you don't have any plan. You've set out no tasks, no goals. You haven't even stated what your real purpose is for that time. And so you're rather aimless and you end up going nowhere. So what you need to do here is create that clear plan of action to clearly state, this is my purpose. State it, write it down, print it out, and tape it up next to your computer if you need to. And then you work out the exact task that you're going to work on. Now, keep in mind, I would not make this, you can have this purpose be large, like this is the ultimate thing I'm shooting for. But more important than that is to know what you're going to be working on that particular week or that particular month. Because then when you sit down to work on the business with the time that you've got, you're not wasting time trying to figure out what to do with yourself. You actually know exactly what to do. There's no confusion to it. And therefore, you're going to make some real progress with that available time, okay? I want you to remove all doubt and all confusion on what you're working on by planning it out in advance. Now, that goes into my second piece of advice, and that is to make those decisions ahead of execution. What I mean by that is any decisions that you need to make, research that you need to do, anything like that, do that first with the eye of then making that decision. And then when you go into execution mode, that's what you do, okay? Where I see people really fall down on their face is when they sit down and they say, I'm going to go do something on my blog. And then they're trying to figure things out as they go. And then it leads off into, shiny. And they get off into all these distractions. And before you know it, they're really overwhelmed and they didn't get anything done. The way to handle that is to separate your decision-making from your actual execution. And this goes back to my first tip, and that is creating that plan, okay? A third thing I want to mention here is scheduling your time as if it is an appointment with yourself. This is something that I do and I find is very successful is that, especially in my business, other than consulting calls sometimes, it's not as if I have a lot of scheduled appointments, okay? But what I do is I set appointments with myself. I say, between the hours of 2 and 3 in the afternoon, I'm working on X. And that's what I do during that time. It's on my calendar and it's an appointment and I don't allow anything else to conflict with it, just like any other appointment. And so I recommend that you do that as well. Actually schedule out that time. And of course, if you've got these other things in your life, like a job or kids or whatever, you're going to have to schedule around those things. But the idea is not to let it go to zero. You need to span your sphere of influence and do all this at the same time, okay? My fourth tip is to hire a mentor. Okay, hire a mentor. Now, it might seem a little self-serving to say that, but I'm going to give you the exact reason why I believe it's actually really important. This world that we are in tends to operate in pairs as the base quantity, I should say. This is why societies tend to do better when there's a firm foundation of marriage. Okay, it's also why businesses that have partners tend to usually grow better. It's because even though you can do a lot as an individual, we tend to operate better as a minimum of a pair. And if you have a larger group than that, it can work as well if you've got some good organization capability in there. But at the basic, it really works better when you've got pairs. And for those of us who are working as individuals, you can create that pairing by hiring a mentor or a coach, because many of us don't have a business partner. I don't have a business partner, but we need to work with other people sometimes. And it could be by way of a coach. It could be by way of joining a mastermind group, whatever it might be. You've got to have those other people, because this is the way the world ticks. It's almost like an energy flow. Like if you were to look at the laws of energy and electricity, you'll see that no electric pole, like a terminal, an electric, if as soon as it sees another terminal, then the electricity starts to flow between them, right? By itself, it doesn't do that much. But when you've got that second terminal, all of a sudden you've got a current between them, and then things happen. And I think we could take that analogy and take it into us as individuals and realize that each of us are a terminal, so to speak. We've got that potential, but a lot of times in order to unleash that potential, we need to have a second terminal there. And then you've got the current flowing between you guys, and then things can happen, okay? So if you are a solopreneur or you're just working on creating this business on your own, I would recommend that you hire a mentor, get a coach, at the very least get a mastermind group, okay? Because we tend to do better in pairs. Now, to that end, and this is why it could easily have seemed self-serving, is if you want to hire a mentor, you can essentially hire me by way of joining the Blog Monetization Lab. Now, you're not going to have me as your direct one-on-one coach inside the lab, although there are options for that if you'd like, but you can get access to me as well as every other person inside the lab. And you can bring this capability to the growth of your business, okay? You can have a mentor, even though I'm going to be dealing with a lot of people at the same time, and you get a kind of a mastermind group all in one inside the Blog Monetization Lab. Not only that, even if you're on a budget, that's a very affordable option for you, because if you go to hire a one-on-one coach, it is certainly going to be a lot more expensive than that, okay? So again, with that in mind, I would recommend you head on over to blogmonetizationlab.com and check it out if you're not already a member, okay? And if you are already a member of the lab and you happen to be listening right now, be sure to utilize the community if you're not. I know we've got some lab members that like to lurk out there in the outskirts, but come on in and participate, ask me questions, because like I said, the world tends to operate as a minimum of a pair. You don't want to be a solo terminal. You want to get that current going between you and somebody else, and that's how things are going to grow for you, okay? So with that being said, hopefully that wasn't too long and rambling for you. I will see you on the next episode of Coffee Break Blogging, which is going to be our last one for 2015, and then we're going to do some really cool stuff for 2016, and we'll talk about it then. See you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Coffee Break Blogging. If you like what you heard here today, we have something awesome we'd love to send you. It's called the Blog Conversion Guide, and it has 9 tweaks you can make to your blog in order to increase your conversion rate to get more opt-ins and sales. As one of our listeners, we'd love to give you access to this guide absolutely free. You can get your copy right now by going to coffeebreakblogging.com. Again, go to coffeebreakblogging.com to get your copy, and we'll see you next time.